So I was on your YouTube channel and I sent you a talk earlier.
Yes,
There were
yes.
so many really good points to that, but something I thought was absolutely fascinating. I was never a big Bruce Lee fan,
Mm-hmm.
okay? And the art, beautiful. Love doing the art, but as far as the movies, it just wasn't my cup of tea. All
Okay.
right. Uh, but you brought up something in regards to in Joe Bruce's movies, he had he had a reverence for life, so he could win all these battles.
Mm.
But if he had to take a life, there was always a price to be paid and an extra moment of homage where you got to see that that was not the point of the
Yes.
whole thing. And as I listened to that, I thought to myself, I've seen those movies. I never caught any piece of that.
Yeah,
Is
yeah. He did some good details. I remember reading a book. This is from a French guy. He wrote a book on his take on cinema, right? And the things the choice he made during the movies. And I remember reading the book. I think can't remember the name exactly, the writer, the author. I think it's Peter something. But he explains how he does a lot of subtle things. Like, for example, typically Bruce Lee might be standing in the middle of the screen and people would just come to him and bounce, boom, off the screen. So he's just like a center figure and just people bouncing off to him, boom, boom, boom.
mm-hmm.
Or there is a bunch of people in the middle and it just enters the center, poof, everybody gets exploded. And he chooses a lot of different things in the movies. Like there is even a scene in I think it's Enter the Dragon, where you see the movie playing on his own in his own face. And so it's just to show sort of the idea of like narrative, movie, storytelling, and real life. They get sort of mixed together. So he makes a lot of choices like this. And one of the choices that I thought was really cool, whenever he kills someone, it's a very dramatic event.
Yeah.
So it will be, and this is just to give you a comparison, it will be very the opposite of what we see nowadays, where everybody dies every 5, 10 seconds,
Mhm.
right? So, it was a big impact in the movie. He shows that taking a life is not something casual. It has to be motivated, it has to be justified if there is such a thing. But he had a lot of drama, and I thought that was kind of cool because it shows a reference for life, right? So almost like, I don't know if you remember the movie Avatar, where I think when they do a killing of an animal, they mimic Native Americans, where there is a reverence, right? Like, if you take a
Yes.
life, you have to do it with dignity, so you don't do it casually. And I thought that was cool. I thought that was really cool. I like movies like that, and especially because it makes the actions better. It makes I think it's the more layer, more, yeah. I think it's richer, more fuller. Yeah.
Yeah. And it adds a layer of subtlety to
Yes.
where, honestly, I'm probably going to watch one of those movies in the next week. And I haven't
Yeah.
watched them in a really long time.
Yeah. Yeah.
Every once in a while, a new student will come in and they'll be excited about Enter the Dragon and they'll tell me about something and maybe I'll go watch it, right? Um,
Is that cool? You know why? Because they're part of popular culture. And I'm pretty lucky because, of course, I'm here in LA. So, I hear about certain things, maybe like inside stories. I remember
hmm
gurus telling some of them. But the choice they made, they were really cool. They're cultural. Like, I'll give you another example. It's a silly thing. I'm just rambling a little bit.
That's
But
great.
I remember watching, and this is like I was telling you, I was a kid, so I haven't even trained with guru yet, right? This is maybe 9, 10 years old. And there is a movie, and I want to say in English is Return of the Dragon, the one at the Coliseum.
hmm
So,
Yeah, with Chuck
okay,
Norris.
you Chuck Norris. There is a scene, he's at the restaurant, and at some point, Bruce Lee goes to the bathroom. And I don't know if you remember that. He's actually squatting on the toilet. He's not sitting in the toilet. Watch the movie again. He's actually puts his feet on the toilet bowl, and then someone comes in and just kind of looks at him kind of weird, and he closes the door. And I remember when I was a kid looking at that, I was like, what was that about? That's such a weird scene. But then with the years, traveling, listening to girls, Southeast Asia, everybody squats.
Yeah.
Everybody's very low in the posture. If you go to Southeast Asia, you'll see so many people in the street, at the bus stop, waiting, being like selling a vendor. It can be anything really, but popping a squat. Very, very, very natural, right? Very healthy too, by the way. And I remember even during the lecture say, okay, squatting is such a healthy thing to do. And in Western culture, we don't do much because we sit on chairs a lot,
Yes,
which
sir.
is bad for the back, and it makes your hip a little tight. And they do that. And so with the years, I realized it was a subtle, easy way to for something that we all do every day, go to the bathroom, but just to highlight a difference, right? And
Hmm.
a little point of entry in someone else's culture. And in the beginning, you're like, it's almost like you bump into something, like you, what is that? That's kind of weird. But just with the years, you go, interesting. And, beside the benefits, it's just to be entered, to be acquainted with something new, a new culture, right? Like chopsticks, spoon
Yeah.
and fork and knife, hitting with your hands. It's small little things, right? But you go, interesting. They do it that way, huh? And why they do it that way? Is it better? Is it worse? Is it the same? Is it doesn't matter, but just sticks you. It makes you leave your own culture for a second, right? You're like, interesting.
Yeah.
It's pretty cool.
I
So
think it's
silly things about the movies, but good choices, good deliberate choices. Very, very deliberate, very thought about it, and go like, I put a little. You didn't have to do that, but put a little something here and something there, just to kind of like, hey guys, look, there is another world out there, right?
yeah. Guru
Hmm.
Daniel, do you do anything in the film or theater world?
Well, I mean, to be honest, okay, it's not something I look for, but once in a while I get a little project here and there, and most of the time has to do with training actors to get ready to
Hmm.
start choreographies. So it's not that I participate in anything to do with the movie itself, like I'm not on set, but sometimes they send me an actor and they say, okay, we want them to look like a boxer, or maybe this is a grappler, he's an MMA guy, we want him to fight this way. So we sort of prep them a little bit. And so we'll train them here, we'll shoot some footage of them, then send them to whoever's doing the choreography or the fight design or whatever. And then we go back and forth like this. And they say, okay, a little bit of this, a little bit of that, a little bit less. And then they go over there, whatever. It can be Atlanta, it can be here, it can be there, and then they start the real work. So we're prepping them a little bit, like
Hmm.
sometimes they say camera ready, but I don't do tons of them. The last thing I did is the one I posted on my Instagram, which was a small thing for Captain America. Captain America's the new Captain America
Hmm.
uh, friend. She was supposed to be like sort of a boxer, and she had like a sort of like a flirting scene at the same time as they were sort of like trading blows. And so that's the last thing I did. But it's interesting. It's not easy work, to be honest, because sometimes it might take a minute for the person to get a vibe, and they can change their mind right away. They go, okay, well now we don't need this anymore, and then so so it's constant. I don't want to overshare too much, but I can tell you that the last person I trained was hard. So hard learning curve. She had to go in the valley, learn how to shoot. So she'll drive over there, learn maybe I don't know 1 hour, 2 hours of shooting, and if you never held a firearm, that can be hard.
Yeah.
And then she'll drive back here and do 2 hours or 3 hours of martial art, and she'll do that 3 or 4 times a week. And it's a steep learning curve. Sometimes you have them for a few weeks, 5 weeks, 6 weeks. Hard, hard. It's really hard.